on the reserve. Hey, you too, that's awesome. Just kidding. Actually got a couple of safety rules before we get started today. Just make sure we stay seated for the entire safari, keeping those hands, arms, feet, and legs inside the truck at all times. Now, if any animals do get close, which does happen, don't try to reach out and touch them. Don't make noises at these animals, and definitely do not try to feed them. If everybody can follow all my rules, we're gonna have a great time out there. Now we'll be starting our adventure in the Little Ituri Forest, where a lot of these animals are pretty shy, so keep an eye on the bushes. They could pop out at any time. Our first animal is going to be off to the right side of the truck. This is an okapi. Now, a lot of people think the okapi is related to the zebra because of the stripes on their back legs, but their closest living relative is not a zebra. Does anyone know what it is?
Yeah.
They are the only living relative of the giraffe. We know that because their skeletal structure is very similar to that of a giraffe, especially in the skull. Both the okapi and the giraffe also have a very long prehensile tongue. That word prehensile means it can grab things. Their tongue is about 18 inches long. They were actually so hard to find. They weren't fully discovered until the early 1900s, until then thought to have been a mythical creature. Now, if you look off to the right, you're going to see a bird up there on the hill. That is a saddle-billed stork, which stand around 4 to 5 feet tall. They get the name saddle-billed because of a yellow part on their bill that kind of looks like a saddle you put on a horse. You actually tell apart males and females based on their eye color. Males have brown eyes and females have yellow eyes. But if you look directly ahead of us right now, you're going to see a black rhino, the smaller. Oh no, an animal doing a natural thing. Gross. You all do it too. The black rhino is the smaller of the two rhino species on the reserve, weighing upwards of about 3,000 pounds. They're mostly solitary animals. They can get pretty territorial with each other. So how do we tell apart black rhinos from the other species of rhino found here on the reserve in Africa, the white rhino? It's actually by looking at their lips. So black rhinos have a pointed prehensile upper lip to grab the vegetation they eat, while white rhinos have very wide lips used for grazing on grass. If we see a bit later, you'll see what I'm talking about. Now, there's 5 species of rhinos found around the world, and unfortunately, all of them are poached for their horns. Some people think there's medicinal value to those horns, but studies have shown there is none. It's actually made of keratin, which is found in your fingernails and hair. Basically, just compact hair that makes up a rhino's horn. We have 2 different antelope species off to the left. This lighter-colored antelope with no horns, that's the greater kudu. Those are all females. Only males have horns. There's a picture of a male on your animal spotting guide above you. Now, the second tallest antelope species on the reserve will have the shoulders standing about 55 inches tall. And those crimson-colored antelope with the horns and stripes, those are bongos. Now, both males and females have horns, which aren't tilted backwards so they can quickly dive into the bushes to escape predators. That pattern in their coat is used to mimic their natural environment for camouflage. Now, making our way out of the Ituri Forest and heading down towards the Safi River. A lot of animals come down to the water for a drink or to cool off. Off to the right, we're going to see some pelicans. These are the pink-backed pelican. They're the smallest of the 8 pelican species in the world. They get the name pink-back because during mating season, the skin on their back turns pink to attract a mate. They have a wingspan of about 9 feet in length, which is the canopy above you from side to side. And they can sustain flight for almost 24 hours straight. Don't know much about those other birds off to the right because those are Florida birds. We're in Africa right now. I don't know how they got here. Now, you got to be pretty careful when you come down to the water here in Africa. A lot of the animals that live in and around the water can get pretty aggressive towards humans, especially animals like the hippopotamus. Not one we typically think of, but they are these 5,000-pound muscular tanks with very powerful bite force who can get very territorial against humans if they get too close. Speaking of which, you're going to see some off to the left. The word hippopotamus in Greek means river horse. They're almost purely made of muscle, so they sink straight to the bottom, but they trot along the bottom water, holding their breath for about 5 to 8 minutes at a time. On land, they can run at speeds of 30 miles per hour. They'll spend most of their day down in the water, usually coming out at nighttime to do all their grazing. They can eat up to about 100 pounds of vegetation in one night. Now, this next animal coming up has an even stronger bite force than a hippo, with a jaw pressure of almost 3,000 pounds per square inch. On your left, the Nile crocodile.
I love them.
Nile crocodile can get to be about 16 to 18 feet in length. They're what we call ectothermic. You might also know it as cold-blooded. Basically, that means they have to use their environment to regulate their body temperature. This crocodile you see sitting on the bank with their mouth open might be trying to push all the hot air out of the body to cool off. On the flip side, the crocodiles too cold. They're sitting their back towards the sun to heat up. Crocodiles are also pretty amazing parents. Moms will stay with the nest until her babies hatch. She'll actually help out with that hatching process by rolling the eggs around, then carrying her babies in her mouth to the safety of the water. The temperature inside a crocodile's nest will actually determine if those babies are going to be males or females. Only maybe 1 or 2 out of a group of about 60 eggs will actually make it to adulthood. And the crocodile is a master of stealthy camouflage. They can move through knee-deep water without making a single ripple on the surface of the water. And if the crocodile really wanted to, they could propel themselves through the water about as fast as a dolphin can swim. Now I could talk about crocodiles all day, but we still have a lot of animals to see. We're now arriving at our Savannah overlook, so as you make your way down the hill, see if you can spot any of your favorite savanna dwelling species out there. Savannas exist in the tropical regions of the world. They're not dry enough to be a desert, but also not wet enough to be a rainforest. They're going to be these grasslands where lots of your herd animals are going to live, as well as the predators that prey on them. Alright, this first animal is going to be a little hard to spot. If you look through the clearing over here off to the right, you're going to see it laying down back there with those stripes. So there are 3 zebra species in the world. There are the plain zebra, there are the Giraffes zebra, but this last one up here is actually the Hartman's mountain zebra. They're the most agile and the best climbers of all the zebra species. A group of zebras called a dazzle of zebra, and that pattern in their coat is unique to each animal. It's kind of like your thumbprint. I actually have several uses for that pattern in their coat. One of those is actually to help prevent flies from landing on them. Researchers have found that whenever a fly sees zebra pattern, it freaks them out and it forces them to try to land somewhere else. They're a little hard to spot. They're all kind of laying down over here off to the left side of the truck. These are African painted dogs, also known as the African wild dog. They are commonly mistaken for hyenas, but they're actually not even related to the hyena. Something really cute that painted dogs do when they wake up in the morning, each individual in the pack will greet each other before they get their day started. Also some of the most efficient predators on the savannah, with a success rate of around 80 to 90%, led by a dominant male and dominant female. The way they decide to do things throughout the day is they vote on what they do. How they vote, they sneeze and they vote yes. When they vote no, they just stay silent. And over here off to the left, we have 2 animals. First one we're going to talk about are going to be these animals with those massive horns. Those are the Nkoli cattle, also called the Watusi cattle, because of the tribe that domesticated them. They were used as a sign of wealth, so the more you had, the wealthier you were. Those horns are not very heavy, and they get to be about 3 to 5 feet in length. On the inside, it's a honeycomb-like structure. Through that structure run blood vessels, which help regulate their body temperature. No sable antelope back there. They're one of the few antelope species that'll stand their ground whenever there are predators nearby, using their horns in self-defense. They're typically led by a dominant female, and their fur will usually darken with age. Now, these structures that we're passing over here, these are termite mounds, mostly made of wood and animal dung. They can get about as hard as concrete. Elephants will sometimes use them as a back scratcher, and there could be enough termites inside to equal the same weight as a small cow. So there are 4 species of giraffe found around the world, 9 subspecies. The species of giraffe we're going to be seeing today over here off to the left, that's the Maasai giraffe. And I can tell that's a Maasai giraffe because of that rigid structure in their coat. And just like with that zebra, that pattern is unique to each animal. Now, giraffe can spend up to 20 hours a day using those long prehensile tongues to grab the leaves from the tops of the trees and pull it down toward their tongue. Now, their tongue is a purple or black coloration coated in saliva to help prevent it from getting sunburned. Now, if they eat for almost 20 hours a day, they're only sleeping about 30 minutes a day. And that's usually not all at once. It's usually in 30-second to 5-minute increments. Giraffe can sleep laying down, they can sleep standing up, they can even sleep with their eyes open. Now, as you pass this giraffe, you see those things sticking out of their head. Those are not horns, they're called ossicones. Ossicones are just part of their skull. Both males and females of the giraffe have them. But in the copy we saw at the beginning of our safari, only males have ossicones. I'll talk more about the giraffe in a little bit, but we're also going to be passing by a pretty small herd of wildebeest. And I say small herd because they've been known to gather in herds of thousands or tens of thousands, sometimes coming together to form a super herd of over 1.5 million. That herd of wildebeest is so large their dust cloud can be seen from space. They'll travel over 1,000 miles through the Serengeti, chasing the rains for grazing grounds, also called the gnu because of the sound they make. And a group of wildebeest is called a confusion. And a group of giraffe is called a tower. Now, giraffe have quite the rude awakening to the world. When a giraffe is born, they drop 6 feet straight to the ground. That 6-foot drop actually helps them jumpstart their breathing. A lot of animals out here on the African savannah have to be able to learn to stand and run very early in life to avoid predators. For example, the giraffe is anywhere between 15 minutes to an hour after they're born. Now, when we think of animals that pollinate, we probably think of animals like bees and butterflies. The giraffe is actually the world's tallest pollinator. Remember, they're spending almost the whole day eating food, so they're spreading pollen to all the different plant life throughout the African savanna. Now, off to the right side of the truck, we're going to see the largest land mammal in the world, weighing upwards of around 13,000 pounds. That is an African elephant. Now, you can actually tell how an elephant is feeling based on what those ears are doing. If you've seen elephants' ears flared out, that means they're upset. Good idea to stay out of the way. But if an elephant is flapping their ears, they're just trying to cool themselves off, kind of like using a very large fan. Large blood vessels in those ears, so as those ears flap, it cools down their blood and their body temperature. Another way elephants keep cool is by throwing mud on their backs to protect themselves from the sun. That trunk of theirs has about 40,000 muscles inside of it, so it'll swing in any direction. They can also eat about 300 pounds of food per day. Now, unfortunately, a lot of the animals we have seen so far today are losing their habitat due to human encroachment. So that's going towards things like farming and mining. So that mining is for a substance called coltan. Coltan is found in a lot of your electronics, like your cell phone batteries or laptop batteries. So by recycling those, you can actually help protect habitat for animals like the elephants. Now, because their habitat loss, lots of elephants are going to places where they're not supposed to go to get food, like people's farms. Now, the farmers don't like that. They've been trying to figure out how to coexist with these elephants. So they reached out to us for help, and we actually found an interesting solution. Elephants are afraid of bees. African bees are very aggressive animals, and elephants have very sensitive skins. They don't want to get stung. They also don't like that buzzing sound. So what we do is we line these farms in Africa with beehives, so whenever the elephants got too close, the bees chased them away. Not only does that protect the farmers' crops from the elephants, protects the elephants from the farmers can also make a profit off the honey found in the beehives, and it helps out bee populations. One of the many projects the Disney Conservation Fund is involved in. Now, elephants live in what we call a matriarch society. That means the females are in charge. The top female, the matriarch, she's the oldest in the herd. She's the one they've moved to grazing grounds and watering holes, maybe even some of the same ones that she's been visiting since she was a baby. While the second in command female, who's also usually the second oldest, she's in the back of the herd. Her job is to make sure that the rest of the herd sticks together. And for the most part, male elephants are solitary animals, like that one we saw earlier, sometimes forming bachelor groups, only briefly rejoining a herd when it's time to mate. Something really cute that sometimes happens whenever a baby elephant is born is they don't know how to use their trunk just yet. So to protect that baby from the sun, the family group will gather around throwing mud on their backs, basically a little baby shower. Now, elephants can live to be about 60 to 70 years old, but unfortunately out in the wild, most of them will not make it to that age. It does sad me to tell you almost 96 elephants are poached each day for the ivory in their tusks. Do the math, that's once almost every 15 minutes. At that rate, they could be gone in the next few decades. Actually, some researchers out in the wild have even been noticing whenever they got close to certain groups of elephants, the elephants would try to hide their tusks from them. Because the elephants have started to figure out that's why they're being poached, is for those tusks. Over here off to the left side of the truck, you're going to see the greater flamingo, the tallest of the 6 flamingo species in the world, standing almost 5 feet tall. They're also the most light pink of all flamingos, but when they are born, they are not born that pink color. They're born a grayer coloration. It takes about a year or two after they're born for them to fully turn pink. So how do they do it? It's actually from the beta carotene found in their diet, which is mostly brine, shrimp, and algae. Also, another name for a flock of flamingos is called a flamboyance of flamingos. Coming around this corner over here off to the left side of the truck, we're going to see the white rhino, larger of the 2 rhino species on the reserve, weighing upwards of about 5,000 pounds. Probably over here earlier for those mud pits, they like to roll around in the mud to protect themselves from the sun. When they're done with that mud, they wipe it off on trees close by, also using lots of rocks and sticks in their environment to sharpen and style their horns. Now, remember at the beginning when I told you to tell apart white rhinos from black rhinos, by looking for the very wide lips that they have. They're also the more social of the 2 rhino species in Africa. Then the name for a group of rhinos is called a crash of rhinos. And the rhinos are nearsighted, and 9 times their eyesight's pretty poor, but watch those ears. You're going to notice their ears tilt around their head. It's one of their main senses they use for their directions is their hearing, also using their really good sense of smell. Now coming around the corner over here off to the left, we're going to see the fastest land animal in the world. Those are cheetah. Now, cheetahs reach speeds of about 60 to 70 miles per hour in about 3 to 4 seconds. Actually, in just 3 steps, they can hit 40 miles per hour. Now, the cheetah's claws are non-retractable. They're the only cats that cannot fully retract their claws. It's kind of like cleats on an athlete to help them run and get up to those really fast speeds. Also, their tail is very large and muscular, which they use as a counterbalance, so they can quickly change direction and capture their prey. Now, the cheetah is not considered a big cat. The reason for that is because the cheetah cannot roar, while big cats can roar. And a group of cheetah is called a coalition of cheetah. So those white rhino we saw back there, that was actually a subspecies of the white rhino. That was the southern white rhino. In the country of Uganda, they disappeared for about 30 years. The animal kingdom, along with a few other zoological facilities, actually helped reintroduce the population, some of them from this very safari, back to Uganda. Since then, that number has been slowly going up to this day. But for the other subspecies of white rhino, the northern white rhino, it's a pretty sad story. 5 years ago, they made headlines around the world when the last male passed away. Now functionally extinct, there's only 2 female northern white rhinos left in the entire world. Now just lying around over there off to the left is an African lion. Now a certain Disney movie might tell you that the lion sleeps tonight. They actually rest anywhere between 16 up to 20 hours a day, usually coming out at nighttime to do all their hunting. And the reason for that is because at nighttime their eyesight is 6 times greater than it is during the day. During the day it's very similar to ours. Now it's the female lions who do all the hunting while the male lion sits back and protects the cubs. At its loudest, a lion's roar can be heard up to 5 miles away. The darker the mane of a male lion, the older it is, most likely the dominant one in the pride. In the early to mid-1900s, there were about 100,000 lions in the wild, but unfortunately today, due to habitat loss and poaching, there's now less than 20,000. Now over here off to the left, these are some warthogs. You'll also notice some holes in the ground. Sometimes the warthogs burrow out these holes themselves, or they take over the holes of other burrowing animals like aardvarks. When they sleep in their holes, they sleep with their tusks facing outward to deter predators from trying to attack them while they sleep. They have 4 tusks. Their closest living relative is the pig. They may not look fast, they can actually run at speeds of 30 to 35 miles per hour. Now over here off to the right side of the truck, we're going to see the world's largest bird, the ostrich, which stands around 8 to 9 feet tall, weighing almost 300 pounds. Now, we all know that ostriches are flightless, but they still have wings, which they use for aerodynamics as they quickly run at speeds of about 40 miles per hour. They also have a kick powerful enough to break the bones of a lion and some of the largest eyes of any land animal. Compared to their head, off to the right, you can see some ostrich eggs on the ground. Those are the world's largest and strongest eggs, weighing about 3 pounds. They're the equivalent of about 2 dozen chicken eggs. They are strong enough the average human can stand on top of one and it would not break. It takes about 40 days for an ostrich egg to hatch. Now, one of the most common myths I hear about ostriches is that they stick their head in the sand to avoid predators. They don't actually do that. They won't be able to breathe if they did that. So normally what they do if there's predators close by, they either crouch super low to the ground or they take off running. Over here out to the left side, this is the Nigerian dwarf goat, which only stands around 2 feet tall, fully grown. Now, they're very playful animals. Through that playfulness, they establish dominance in the group. They're also very skilled climbers and a 4-chambered stomach, so they really love to eat a lot of food. Now, unfortunately, friends, our safari is coming to an end, and it does sadden me to tell you that most of the animals we saw today on the reserve are endangered. It's estimated that 65% of endangered animals will be gone in the next 100 years. Now, the word Harambe in Swahili means to come together. And here at the Harambe Wildlife Reserve, we believe that if we can all come together to help protect these animals, they will have a future and future generations can experience them. So what can we do to help? Well, we can all start by doing something simple like recycling. Your plastics, bottles, papers, even your cell phone batteries and laptop batteries like I mentioned earlier can be taken to places like Best Buy or sometimes even your local zoo to get recycled for that coltan so you can help protect habitat. Another great way to get involved is donating. Since 1995, Disney Conservation Fund has raised over $125 million to help animals around the world. It doesn't matter how big or how small a donation, Disney will match dollar for dollar when you donate. For more information about them and some of their projects around the world, you can check out any of the merchandise locations throughout the park or just head to their website. Also, one of the best ways that every single person on this truck can help out is by never purchasing wildlife products. Things with ivory in them, cheetah fur coats, crocodile boots. Please do not buy things like this. Now, if you're looking for more animals throughout the park, when you get off the truck, head over towards the Gorilla Falls Exploration Trail for a few more African animals you might not have seen on the safari. If you want to see some Asian animals, head over towards the Maharaja Jungle Trek, which is located over behind the Kali River Rapids. A few other animal enclosures and walking trails scattered throughout the park. Now, to make the most of your day here at Animal Kingdom, I definitely recommend doing all the animal stuff first. The reason for that is a lot of these animals do have an earlier bedtime than when the park closes. I know the safaris and the walking trails close around 5:45, but animals typically like to go to bed a lot earlier than that. So do all the animal stuff first, and by the end of the day, the lines for those bigger rides won't be as long. Also, while you're here in Africa, you can take a short train ride over to a place called Raffiki's Planet Watch. Out there, you can learn to draw some of your favorite Disney animals at the Art of Animation experience. You can also check out our animal hospital and our petting zoo. Those goats you saw at the very end of the safari, there are goats very similar to those at that petting zoo. Now, the last train to Rafiki's does leave the station at 4:30, so it's another one of those things that I definitely recommend doing before anything else in the park.